Good evening. I appreciate you taking your time tonight. Many of the speakers have already covered my stuff, so I'm going to kind of be brief and to the point. If you have any questions, please ask me. My name is Pat Sanders. I'm a community activist. I actually, native Angelina, even in this room, beneath this floor, my father started his city career as a person driving the predecessors of the city council to places in this city he couldn't even go in. So I'm going to start off with the Voting Rights Act. Please, at this point now, no, I don't want to give up one office because that's against us. That's my right to have someone that looks like me represent me. I'm very strong on that. I'm also a big activist on voter education and outreach. I'm going to tell you the cities that should be grouped together because it's difficult when you're doing elections because you're cutting right through a city. I'd recommend Inglewood, Lenox, Del Aire, Hawthorne, West Athens, Gardena, Carson, and West Carson, along with Marina Del Rey, to be grouped together. We have education. We have colleges that cross across that. Gardena YMCA is a place for our kids. The Forum, don't get it twisted, just because the Lakers and the Clippers don't pay their Prince is backing them in tonight. I mean, we use that. I know the former governor and his wife had to reconnect I guess with services. It wasn't just voter services, community services, giving out food last year. We still use that. Also, Hollywood Park, just because our redevelopment kind of money has been cut with the economic issue, they're still booked. I just booked an event for a church. We've got churches there. I work with community groups. I work with fraternities, sororities. My big thing is voter education and outreach. I retired 33 years for the city. With my mother, my father, and myself, we have given over 100 years to this city. I was born in Boyle Heights. So, yes, we see the city change, but I'm still involved in that. I want to say this because you're saying about the population, if I can finish in the amounts, I'm one of those ones that was undercounted. I did not fill out a census, and I'll tell you why. When you look at what's happened in the last week, when you can have somebody send something around, and I'll just use the common phrase because I really grew up 62 blocks from here, and that's playing the dozens with somebody that holds the highest office. What do you think I feel? That's something where you've talked about somebody else. That's not a game, or that's not cute. And that's what people feel when they come to this. They're feeling like you're once again taking them back to my dad in the late 1940s when he served this country, and when he came back and they told him turn around because they told us you have a tail. So how much are we saving here? You guys need to think about this. This other previous speaker told you, don't pay attention to everybody. I work as voter education outreach. I work for everybody. I missed the INS ceremony today, and I'm going to tell you, I'm sorry, they represent everybody in here. So please keep that in mind. I really mean that. And you didn't count me. So count me in, but you did not count me because I did not fill out. I'm one of those unrepresented numbers. So please look at that.
I do have one question for you.
Thank you.
I do have one question.
Oh, yes, you do. Okay, darling.
Can you please describe for me the community of interest that you feel ties Inglewood down to Marina Del Rey?
Well, all of them, because we're all kind of connected. If you look at, oh gosh, what did I mention? The Dina Carson YMCA, Sarah High School, who's located in Gardena.
So you're basing it, excuse me, I'm sorry, you're basing this on a school district?
Not just on a school district. This is my congressional district. My congressional district 35. My Senate district is 25. My Assembly district is 51. And we mentioned the airport. The airport is the economic engine that ties it together. Century Village. We're the model for a small city that said, hey, we need to generate some income, so we're there. So it ties in there. When they cut that Wisconsin, and you've got Athens over here, and they don't vote over here, so you're trying to kind of bring the communities together. We do have like interests. And in my community, I do have Vietnamese, Korean, black, white, Latinos. Okay, and that's always been our community. People stay in their homes. Unfortunately, they pass away. I had someone pass away down the street from me. We have a neighborhood block club that we've been active. I've seen kids grow up, seen grandchildren come and vote because I was the polling inspector for 35 years in that area.
Terrific. Thank you very much.
Speaker.
Marina Del Rey's done.
Just as a side note, I was going to say, I'm sure Commissioner Baraba, as a former U.S. Census Director, would love this opportunity to say how important it is that everybody fills out their census, because this is really one of the reasons why it does matter. So a plug for our former Census Director.
And if you could ever find an instance where somebody's record was turned over to someone else, I'd like to know about it.
Speaker 95.
95 here. My name is Hector Bettis Pacheco. I am resident from Lincoln Heights. I'm a Native American, Quechua Native. But my area of interest is Senate District 24 that encompasses the Lincoln Heights community all the way towards the West Covina area community. And my recommendation is to combine the community that I live in, Lincoln Heights, with the Senate 22nd that represents all downtown Los Angeles. From my home every day, I can literally see this building, and we have much more of interest where I live, my neighbors, and the people that I live with towards this area versus the areas towards the east of San Gabriel Valley area. So we're strongly urging to join with the northeast area, which encompasses Cypress Park, Highland Park, El Sereno, Vassal Park, all that area, as well as downtown Los Angeles, to represent us accordingly. Okay, thank you.
Number 96. 97. 98. 99. 100. 101. 100? What? 100.
Hi, I'm prepared to speak. I'm going to read this as quickly as I can, okay? I have lived in Topanga since 1971. We're talking about Topanga Canyon all my adult life, really. I was born in Manhattan, and when I called my parents in 1973 to tell them I was getting divorced, my mother asked if I was coming home. I had to tell her I was already home. Topanga was my home the first time I drove into it. Topanga is one indivisible community. For me, it is even more than a community. It's a state of mind, a way of life, a living thing. We have a bumper sticker that says, "Don't change Topanga, let Topanga change you." And if you live in Topanga, you understand. We are bound together geographically, environmentally, geologically, by so many things: our Santa Monica Mountains, our valleys, our creeks, our beaches, and our parks. We are also bound by the many civic organizations. We have the Topanga Town Council, the Topanga Communities Club, formerly the Women's Club, the Topanga Association for a Scenic Community, the Arson Watch, TCEP, which organizes our emergency preparedness, the Topanga Chamber of Commerce, the Topanga Sages, the Topanga Canyon Gallery, the Topanga Historical Society. Topanga is an historic 150-year-old community with its own history book and more. We have our own newspaper, the Topanga Messenger, established 35 years ago, and our own elementary school, Topanga Elementary. We have our own post office and our own zip code, Topanga 90290. We even have hats with that on it. Where was I? We have our own county fire station and a brand new county library, which will open its doors in December. 2 small shopping centers, 4 restaurants, and 2 coffee shops, and not a franchise in sight. As an unincorporated community within the 3rd supervisorial district, we have been proud to participate over the years as an important stakeholder in all manner of issues, including land use, preservation of open space, and watershed management. We have been referred to as a village, a small town, but we have never been referred to as divided. But as much as our geography and organizations tie us together, our people also are bound together as a community of like-minded residents. We are artists, musicians, entertainment professionals, and writers. We are teachers and small business owners and working people. Over 65% of our adult population has a college degree. Many people work at home, and those who don't work, who work outside their homes.
Time.
I'm sorry.
Would you like to turn that in for us?
Yes, I would.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, let me just say that we are also surrounded by our friends in Malibu, Pacific Palisades, and Santa Monica, Calabasas, Woodland Hills, and Agoura Hills. We share our mountain ranges, our beaches, and our watersheds. We share our school districts, water districts, roads, and highways. We go to the movies and shop in Calabasas, Woodland Hills, and Santa Monica. Our hiking trails go clear up to Agoura Hills, and that's
Excuse me,
where our
but
Costco
we really
is.
have to move on.
Like that.
Okay.
Okay? So, all right. Over here.
I have a question. How many more speakers are there in the audience? Okay, well, we have to alert the security as to whether we're going to be past 10, and the answer is yes. And are any of the speakers going to require any translation? Okay, then we could let our translator go home. Okay.
101. Speaker 101.
My name is Jerry Kenyon. I have lived in the unincorporated community of Topanga since 1977, and I have worked for the LAUSD as a school psychologist since 1978, retiring in 2009. During that time, I have come to understand Topanga from the perspective of an educator, even while I became that special human entity, a Topangan. Topanga is unique, both in a general and in a specific case. While it is integrated into the surrounding communities, the Valley, Malibu, Santa Monica, Pacific Palisades, Calabasas, and so on, it also preserves its essential creative uniqueness, both as it pertains to its internal function and in how it reaches out to influence the areas surrounding it. Topanga is home to interests that touch on the spiritual through the mundane. There are classes in yoga for our senior citizens and preschools, organized and supported by community families for our newest Topangans. And, of course, we have the Will Gear Theatricum Botanicum, offering all manner of theater to Topanga and beyond, and every year over 12,000 school children from all over greater Los Angeles travel in the spring and fall to attend school days classical theater instruction at the Theatricum. We are served by both public and private schools here in Topanga, including Topanga Elementary School, now a charter school, and we have Muse just down the road from my house, providing a wonderful educational experience privately. Students completing elementary school here in Topanga and who wish to remain in the public charter school systems matriculate to middle and high schools adjacent to Topanga in the communities of Calabasas, Malibu, LAUSD, and Pacific Palisades, Los Angeles, Woodland Hills, in the San Fernando Valley. And beyond that, we have the community colleges in Santa Monica and San Fernando Valley. And I would like to mention also the public universities that serve us and that we are involved with. And in closing, I would like to urge the Commission to retain the unincorporated town of Topanga and their continuous communities in the San Fernando Valley, the Las Virgenes Valley, Malibu, Pacific Palisades, Santa Monica, and West Los Angeles, within the same Assembly and
Excuse
Senate
me, but
districts,
if you could just
41
turn that in,
and
we'll keep it
23.
recorded in the full record. Thank you.
Because they effectively serve a diverse constituency as regards educational opportunities. And
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the extra time. And I very much appreciate all your work. It's just incredible, the job that you have.
Okay.
Thank
But
you.
if you could leave your notes, then I think we'll make sure we get it all.
All right. Thank you. I will do that.
Thank you.
Speaker 102. 103. 104. 105. 106. 107. 108.
I apologize in advance for reading to you. Thank you for the opportunity, members of the Citizens Redistricting Commission. My name is Clark Stevens, and I'm the Executive Officer of the Resource Conservation District of the Santa Monica Mountains. We appreciate the opportunity to provide input related to the proposed redistricting of the state and have over the last 50 years of our existence identified a number of important communities of interest that bind the Santa Monica Mountains watersheds in a single community of interest. We ask that the communities of the Santa Monica Mountains, those in both Los Angeles County and Ventura County, with watersheds flowing into the Santa Monica Bay and Pacific Ocean, as well as the adjacent watersheds of the Simi Hills of the upper Los Angeles River system, be represented to the greatest extent possible in unified representational districts. The Greater Santa Monica Mountains community of interest links natural and human communities with one another in a manner unique to mountain watersheds. We have multiple common resource interests centered around the following, which will be explained in the letter in full that I'll leave behind here. 1, watersheds. 2, water quality. 3, wildfire management. 4, transportation corridors. 5, scenic and recreational resources. And 6, wildlife habitats. Just a little detail on the last of those, wildlife habitats. We need to understand that connectivity at the regional scale is also critical in this area. The mountain's apex predator, the mountain lion, relies entirely for its existence on linked and fragile watershed connections from the Santa Monica Bay and Pacific Ocean through the upper Los Angeles watersheds of the Simi Hills to source populations in the Los Padres National Forest. To date, these collections of watersheds have benefited fairly much by relatively unfragmented overlay of state-level representation. So we hope that in the current redistricting effort that will be kept largely the same, and the principles should emphasize continuity of watershed form and habitat linkages, identify and work with existing land management overlays such as the Santa Monica Mountains National Recreation Area, and understand that large and connected area of open space, even though they don't contain a lot of human population, actually do represent a very important continuous community of interest. Thank you.
I'm sorry, real fast. Could
Question.
you just mention very quickly the cities or counties that you say are associated with the Santa Monica?
Yes, I can. The municipalities and wholly contained unincorporated communities of the Santa Monica Mountains include Thousand Oaks, Hidden Valley, and Deer Creek, Yerba Buena, and Bell Canyons, all of Ventura County, and also Westlake Village, Agoura Hills, Calabasas, Hidden Hills, West Hills, Woodland Hills, Encino, Sherman Oaks, Montanito, Cornell, Malibu Lake, Malibu, Topanga, Pacific Palisades, Sherman Oaks, Bel Air, Beverly Glen, Westwood, and the canyon areas of Beverly Hills and West Hollywood in L.A. County.
Thank you.
And that's all in the letter. Okay.
Jody?
What state district were you referring to that you feel adequately covers those areas that you wanted to keep the same?
It's actually the overlay I was referring to is it's not defined by any given district. Our resource conservation district.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood then.
Yeah, it's generally overlay follows our boundaries of resource conservation district, but the connections to the north along the rim of the valley area are actually not in the district in their entirety, but pretty critical and shared interest areas.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
I'll leave this with you.
Speaker 110.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kevin Wilson, and I lived in the Crenshaw area all of my life, which is a part of the 35th Congressional District. I am a letter carrier. I have been employed there for 26 years, and I have delivered mail in the following communities: Crenshaw, Leimert Park, Hyde Park, Exposition, and Baldwin Hills. My patrons are a very diverse group, and they come from all races and ethnic backgrounds. Some of the concerns of the community, jobs, schools, health care, and economic security for their family. And with all these shared concerns, I hope that you, the Commission, can keep the 35th Congressional District together. Those cities are Crenshaw, Leimert Park, Hyde Park, Exposition, and Baldwin Hills. Thank you.
Any questions?
Excuse me, sir. Did you attend a recent rally from
No,
Congressman
I
Waters?
didn't. I was at work.
Thank you.
And my guess is you're probably one of the few people that's walked every neighborhood you talked about.
Yeah. You're representing the Postal Service very well.
Speaker 111.
All right.
Good evening to all of you, and thank you for your patience. My name is Mary Randall. I live in an unincorporated area that's between Los Angeles and Compton. It's called Willowbrook. I grew up in Willowbrook. I lived there 19 years. I moved from there to Hawthorne, to Paramount, and now I'm back. I work and I'm retired 2 years from Martin Luther King Hospital. And I am my district, the 37th district, I want it to be kept intact. It's very important because it links to many other cities. Say Compton, Linwood, Gardena, Carson, Inglewood, even some of Southgate. And I learned from working at King Hospital, I worked there from the beginning. And the most important thing in our community is health. Our people suffer from high blood pressure, diabetes, a lot of the pediatric illnesses. We have an Oasis clinic that helps the HIV/AIDS patients. And we have, at present time, Martin Luther King is a MAC. It's it's called a MAC. It's a multi-auxiliary center. I forgot the complete name, but it's going to be developed into a major hospital. When the Watts riots happened, the Warren Commission determined that one of the major problems with our area is that it did not have a major health center. So that was why Martin Luther King was developed. And in 2 more years, it will be a full functioning hospital. Please consider keeping our area.
Thank you.
Speaker 112.
Good evening. I'm Tim Watkins. I'm the president and CEO of the Watts Labor Community Action Committee, founded 46 years ago by Ted Watkins, my father, with a group of union volunteers and some others. WLCAC is one of the byproducts of the Watts riots of 1965, along with Southwest College, the Watts Health Foundation, Martin Luther King Hospital, which we campaigned to get in place, the Maxine Waters Employment and Education Center, as well as the Charles Drew University. We exist as a result of the many disparities that existed prior to the 1965, some call revolt, because we live in a corridor of poor health, generating from the port all the way down into downtown Los Angeles. I want you all to just pause for a moment and listen very carefully to what I'm about to tell you, because despite all of the fanfare of the redistricting process and everybody's antics around that, Watts is where the hypercenter of the highest infant mortality rate is in this nation. And for any of you that care about babies, you should take that very, very seriously, because it's taken us 46 years to get to the point where we're actually beginning to move people from dependency on social services to a more self-sufficient way of life. It's very difficult with the highest recidivism rates, the poorest education, the least in terms of the basic health care benefits, highest unemployment rates, and still, people struggling to get into the mainstream. The bottom line is that WLCAC serves 2 million points of service to over 500,000 people a year, and we do it with the benefit of having the nexus between the 35th and 37th districts. And last night, I told you all that if we had to shrink Watts in order for 37 to be better, I had to think about that on the way home because Watts is a community that suffers the greatest disparities of all, and we benefit from having the shared districts, the 35 and 37. And so I'd want to implore you to think about adequacy rather than equity when you're thinking about what a place like Watts needs. And in closing, I just want to say thank you for your patience in this, but I do have one word of advice because I've listened to one of the commissioners tonight without any resistance from any of you, racially or politically profiled people here, over and over and over again, asking them if they've been to a particular rally for a particular representative, and I think that you put yourselves at risk when you fail to resist that kind of profiling. Thank you.
Thank you.
Speaker 113. Speaker 113.
Good night and very night, dear members of the Citizen Redistricting Commission, the Commission. First of all, to recognize this historical room. It's a beautiful room with a lot of history. You have no idea everything that has transpired here in these walls. And then thank you to the City of Los Angeles for facilitating, this important hearing. This is democracy in action. My God, you have quite a task. We need to thank you, the voters of California, for passing Propositions 11 and 20 that gave life to you. And we're proud to have a Citizens Commission, And the good thing is that when you're done with your job, I'll be ending up in Marina del Rey, so I'll be happy about it. My name is Francisco Rivera, and I am the President and CEO of the National Central American Roundtable. We propose to the City of Los Angeles the creation of the Central American Cultural District, that encompasses most of the community of Westlake and Pico Union, where there is the highest density of people. Just an idea, in Rampart Boulevard, between 6th and 3rd, they live 5,000 people. Just in that area. So that's tell you, and we're very proud, and recognize the work of the council member. But, this paper here says United States, a new map of Latino power in the United States. In California, Latinos is an irony, that being the majority now in terms of the numbers of the population, the political representation is so poor. So please, when you consider, all the redistricting that you're going to do, and you only have 110 days to do that, please remember that. The political representation, because Latinos, we are a high number, but we don't have the proper political representation that we should have, And I have just a last reflection, to end, that we're about to celebrate the Heritage Month of the Asian Pacific Islander. And for me, it's just fantastic, that you have Little Tokyo, then you have Chinatown, then you have the historical Filipino town, then you have the Thai town, and then you have Koreatown. My God, if you just join all those together, forget it. You create a new Senate district and a new assembly. Congratulations to the Asian Pacific. It's a beautiful people, beautiful community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Speaker 114.
Does
115.
anybody else have a card? I think oh, yes. Okay. What's your number? Is there anybody before 118?
118. 117.
Okay.
Good evening. My name is Lisa Baca. I'm with the Greater Echo Park Elysian Neighborhood Council. I'm here to advocate for Echo Park. Currently, we are in the 31st Congressional District, but we are divided, as someone else from Echo Park has mentioned, between several Assembly and Senate districts. And it does not make for our resources in Echo Park to be provided to us as a community of interest. Our community is completely in the city of Los Angeles. Our schools are LAUSD schools. We partner with the historic Filipino town in presenting the annual Lotus Festival, the largest Asian Pacific Islander festival in Southern California. I would ask that you configure Echo Park, historic Filipino town, Silver Lake, Atwater, and Glassell Park in the 31st. And also someone testified with Lincoln Heights, which traditionally and historically has been in the 22nd Congressional District, tied to the east side. Boyle Heights, also historically through the Chicano movement and the student walkouts, those schools have always been linked to the east side, not to the Silver Lake Echo Park side. So that is something that I hope you do consider when you're considering community of interest. But the dividing line in Echo Park is Sunset and Echo Park Avenue, which is the heart of Echo Park, and it splits us up into every single assembly district. So Echo Park has been gerrymandered to fulfill everybody else's census quota, and Echo Park is the most diverse little hamlet in Los Angeles. We have everything there, and everybody drives through Echo Park. For example, the 2 freeway from the Senate Assembly side, it's a state freeway on a state highway cutting a community completely in half. And we cannot, after 10 years, find a solution because nobody wants to take ownership for the state highway. Is it a city? Is it a county? Is it a state? So in trying to find resolution for that, which is a huge transportation corridor for the rest of the valley to come to downtown LA, literally Echo Park is cut up in so many ways. We need to be whole. Thank you very much.
Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Speaker 118.
Sorry if I messed up the rotation. I'm just a citizen who likes Dave's redistricting application, and I'm a longtime resident of Southern California, mainly living in Pasadena area, lived in Tonga, went to school in downtown LA, went to UCLA, lived on the west side, and I work on the west side. So I'm kind of familiar all over the place with all of the demographics and maps. But mainly my concern is with the north and eastern part of the city. I would say there are a lot of districts that dip into East LA and then go into the San Gabriel Valley, and I don't think that makes sense from a community of interest point of view or as far as serving the needs of the Latino community in that area as well. So, for instance, Eagle Rock should be cut out of the Pasadena Assembly District, I think, and placed with those northeast Los Angeles areas, as mentioned. Also, Sunland Tujunga, I think, belongs with Glendale and Burbank and not with Lancaster or Mammoth Lakes in a congressional district, and not with Simi Valley in a assembly or Senate district. I think it does belong with Burbank and Glendale and the San Fernando Valley communities. Of course, I don't think the west side should go all the way out to Oxnard either. And I would say, in terms of the Pasadena area, I think that it's clear, that the San Gabriel Valley communities, Monterey Park, Alhambra, the Assembly District, I think whichever Assembly District has Monterey Park and Alhambra, that seems like a very relatively compact community of interest. But at the Senate level and at the congressional level, it's totally split up. And I don't think that serves the interests of the communities as well. I think that, as far as the foothill communities, I think Claremont and Pasadena and Glendora have a strong community of interest on the congressional level, on the Senate level, as far as they both have education centers, Claremont colleges, Pasadena colleges, very science-oriented and professional-oriented, versus, say, Glendale and Burbank, which are much more oriented towards Hollywood and the San Fernando Valley. Thank you. And no, I didn't go to the Congresswomen's rally.
Thank you.
What numbers are left? 120. I think we're at 121.
I have to just take a moment to say you're all such a good group. You've been here as long as we have, and you're all working together well. So we appreciate your patience,
Thank
too.
you. If staff can bring up Congressional District 31, I think, and concentrate on the thinnest part of that area. I'm David Rockello. I'm currently serving on 2 neighborhood councils because my community, and you've heard it before tonight, is historic Filipino town, and it's trapped between 2 different congressional districts. That's my community of interest. But I serve on Greater Echo Park Elysian Neighborhood Council, and I'm the president of Rampart Village Neighborhood Council, which is touching Koreatown, 6th Street to the 101 freeway to Vermont, all the way to Benton Way. And what I'm asking folks is that the gerrymandering of the past, if that can, with your help, we can get rid of that, and you can recognize the new ethnic communities that were, the designations that were made, our boundaries, our city council boundaries. If you can look at these other boundaries and how the city is broken up, we can make it a lot simpler for the voters and the people that live and need services in the area. Temple Street used to be the corridor, the transportation corridor, then the freeway came. Now we have two different community plans. One is done in 2004 and the other one's done in 2010. Historic Filipino Town needs a break. We need to be able to get everything under one roof as much as possible so that we can make this into a new cultural tourism destination. So I want to thank you. I wanted to also point out with that thin area, the closest area that's the thinnest. There's the 34th district and the 33rd district. The 33rd district is where the Bangladeshi community is, and I'd like to speak up for them too because they're underrepresented here tonight. Thank you very much for your consideration, and have a great night.
Okay. Quick question.
Yeah.
Has it been recently recognized?
Yeah, 2002 it was recognized. It's 2.1 square miles.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
122, 123, 124, 23.
Evening. My name is Vivian Yoshioka, and I'm here tonight because I can't make the meeting that you're going to have on Friday in the San Gabriel Valley. I'm a resident of Pomona, and I like to tell people I live, work, and play in Pomona because I actually do work at the Pomona Superior Court, downtown Pomona. The area of Pomona that where I live and I work is bordered basically by Foothill Boulevard to the north. To the west, you've got the 57 freeway in Cal Poly. To the south, basically, it is the city southern border, and the eastern border is basically where San Bernardino County and Los Angeles counties meet. And I hope you forgive me because I don't usually talk in front of a group unless you're my jurors in my courtroom, and then I already know that spiel. We're predominantly a working class community, a largely Hispanic community, and we have a huge transient population. As Commissioner Yao knows, we have a large parole population there because we have a parole office in Pomona, and we as well as a probation office. So a lot of the people that use our services in Pomona are people that are going to be of low income. We've got a lot of people, though, unfortunately, that have criminal records in that area. My biggest fear, and why I'm here tonight to speak out, is that I'm afraid that you're going to lump us into a city like either Walnut, Diamond Bar, Laverne, San Dimas, Claremont. Nothing wrong with Claremont, but you've got a totally different socioeconomic base. You've got a totally different population. When you look at Claremont, you've got a high density of, white, upper middle class, highly educated population there. You've got the Claremont colleges there. You come to Pomona. Our big industries are the Pomona Valley Hospital, Western University. Then you've got the what I call the government complex there. You've got the City Hall, the fire department, the police department, and the courts right there. So we've got a totally different base. So I'm afraid that if you lump us in, because we have problems with infrastructure, that we will lose funding. So if you can try to keep us still with Montclair, Pomona, and Ontario, which is basically about the same kind of financial status as us. Thank you.
Peter.
Just a short question. So you would prefer to be grouped with the San Bernardino County cities?
Yes, and I know that's going to be an odd thing for you guys, but yes.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
And what do you have in common with the San Bernardino in terms of defining your community of interest? What is it more similar? Why is it more similar?
Financially, economically, and talk about minority-wise too. Large Latino population, if you look at Ontario, working class. more of a middle class, lower middle class. I mean, we do have pockets of people that are doing better, but basically across the board, we're basically a middle class and lower middle class area.
So, one question I get a lot is, well, why would people want to be all lumped in together into this class, and doesn't that keep the wealthy here and the poor here? And I mean, so, and you're just going to be my guinea pig for this question.
Oh, that's okay.
So, I understand what you're saying. What is it about keeping that community you've described with the socioeconomic makeup that's distinct from a higher economic? How does that benefit your representation?
I think it benefits us because we're basically on the same level playing field. When you want to lump us up either with Walnut or Claremont, if, let's say, there's a need in Pomona for more money for infrastructure, I'm afraid, because I live and work there, I'm afraid that we won't, when they look at the totality of it, oh, Claremont's got this kind of money, and you put us all together and average it to a medium average, we're going to look like we're doing okay when those of us in Pomona really aren't. Can I make one suggestion when you're doing this? I had the hardest time finding parking because I work out of Pomona and live. If you could put on your website, maybe, just some parking garage addresses maybe would help some of us from going around and around the block looking for a place to park. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Speaker 123.
That was 123.
Oh, she was 124. 125. 126. Okay, 129.
Good night. My name is Maggie Darrett. Good night, yeah. Almost 11 o'clock. My name is Maggie Darrett. I was born and raised in L.A. All I know is L.A. I'm proud of being an Angelino. And I live in the Glassell Park area. My area is very confusing. I have 3 city councilmen. I have 2 senators, and I don't know who else. I do a lot of community projects. I'm one of the co-founders of the Glassell Park Neighborhood Council. I'm also the secretary of the Glassell Park Neighborhood Council, part of the Glassell Park Improvement Association, Neighborhood Watch Captain, Neighborhood Watch This. And I do all this because I care about my community. What hurts me is that I grew up in Glassell Park, and I've seen Glassell Park look really pretty and look really ugly. And here I am trying to make it go back to the way it was when I was a kid. When I'm working on a project, it's very difficult to find out who's in charge of what area. I'm here because I wanted what's benefit for Glassell Park, not for what benefits for a senator. We are in the northeast area, Lincoln Heights, Glassell Park, Eagle Rock, Cypress Park, Atwater, Echo Park, and also Eagle Rock. And what happens is that when we're doing a project, I have 3 city councilmen, I'm doing a project, they pinpoint at each other, that councilman, that councilman. We're doing a cleanup next month, and in order to do a cleanup, we had to get everybody united to say yes, okay? I had to find out who represents what area, so we could go ahead and try to change the name of a street. I had to call 3 councilmen, 2 assemblies. I got the answer by a real estate agent. So what happens is that Glassell Park looks really bad. I mean, it looks really crappy. And, fortunately, I don't benefit from free programs. I don't benefit from this. Maybe I'm not Mexican enough, not white enough. So, but I care about my community. I'm proud of being an Angelino. And I need to do what's best for my community. And being united is what's going to benefit my community.
Time.
So, thank you for your time. Good night.
Sir, 130? 131. Oh, 130. Wait, 130? Sorry.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Victor Anthony Butler. I'm asking that you please do everything in your power to keep the community of Culver City, Baldwin Hills, Baldwin Village, Ladera Heights, View Park, and Windsor Hills together because we have so much in common. Our communities are all small neighbors of the giant that is Los Angeles. We are physically surrounded by LA on every side, yet we work hard to retain the district character. We are pockets of suburban life within the city. We have higher than average income and education levels and much lower crime rates than that of surrounding neighborhoods in LA. And we share a unique history. Our community was created as a haven for people coming up out of poverty and into the middle class who were prevented by segregation from settling in other middle class areas of LA County. And we strive to be a welcoming community. That's it. Oh, nice to meet you.
Oh, we have sir.
Excuse me?
Sir, we have a question.
Well, I have one quick. Just generally, you may not know the numbers off the top of your head, but like how many people are in those areas in terms of? I'm thinking if they're trying to reach these kind of thresholds that we have for these, the assembly being 465,000, is that enough of that area? Are we still looking at what are some areas around that that you might identify with as well, too? Kind of a north-south and east-west?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, I kind of work at the convention center and the different venues like that. So
okay.
My area is like from the convention center, LA, what do you call it? LA Live? That's where I work, but my community's on the west side, West LA. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I'm just trying to take an opportunity if there's people here that we've been hearing some good testimony about what their communities of interest are, and just wondering if we have to add to those or in order to get the full numbers for Assembly and Senate and Congressional, where you would go. Any recommendations you'd have, that's all. So if you don't have to answer it, but I just thought if you had an opinion, you could give it.
And, I've spent a lot of time in the Culver City, the Fox Hills area, having lived there for a number of years. But so if you wanted to be hooked up with another sort of part of the region, would you want to go more west, Santa Monica? Do you want to go north a little bit into West L.A.?
Well, what were you suggesting?
Well, it's because, again, the problem is it's a smaller population, and we can try to keep it intact, but it's going to have to be hooked up with another part of L.A., right? So if you...
Are you talking about going east or west?
Yeah. Which way would you want to go?
Probably east to Figueroa and then west to Marina Del Rey.
Okay, that's good. Good.
131.
Good evening. I feel it's almost morning, but Russell Brown, I'm Executive Director of the Historic Downtown Business Improvement District and also been very involved with the Neighborhood Council. I was president of the Downtown LA Neighborhood Council for 5 years. We're in the 22nd District, which includes almost all of downtown. And I think our normal sort of common boundaries include not only the community in the circle of the freeway, but also the urban dense communities immediately adjacent to that, which includes Chinatown, Olivera Street, includes Little Tokyo, and it also includes a neighborhood called City West that is basically the high-rise district just adjacent to the freeway. And our southern boundary, even though we have the 10 freeway, really pretty much changes more at Washington Boulevard because you have the industrial area. Through the neighborhood council system, they created normal boundaries of communities. And in downtown, we have both the Downtown LA Neighborhood Council and the Historic Cultural Neighborhood Council, which includes all of those communities. Even though downtown has about 400,000 people a day who come through downtown, there's only about 50,000 residences. So obviously, we will need to be partnered with some other communities, but I think our normal communities of interest really include the transportation corridors, especially Figueroa corridor from LA Live, Staples Center to the stadium, down to probably about Martin Luther King. I would agree that our adjacent communities of Echo Park, Silver Lake, Atwater Village, East Hollywood are communities of common interest, and they should be very much stay intact. As we were looking at the districts, it struck me that most of the boundaries actually were listed as the major transportation corridors. And instead of those being boundaries, those are actually the center of communities. So if you start to look at Wilshire Boulevard, Figueroa Corridor, and the major boulevards as really the centers of the communities instead of the edges of the communities, I think you'll unify the communities a lot better. Thank you.
132.
Good evening. We are here today. My name is Mike Chatham, Executive Director of the Community Legal Research Center, and I'm a member of All of Us or None, a member of an organization that's a movement, not just an organization. But we're here today to talk about crime in our cities and our beloved county of Los Angeles. And what we want to stress is that the particular agencies that cover the nervous cities in the city of county of Los Angeles could be like Carson, Lawndale, Linwood, North Long Beach, South Los Angeles, South Central Los Angeles, Gardena, and Inglewood, just to name a few. But mainly the county of Los Angeles nestles its services for the city of Compton, which represents the 37th district and the Assembly District of 52nd as well. And what we do every Sunday is study crime at the corners of Rosecrans and Central by a project called Wall of Shame. Presently, we have almost 3,400 murders in our city or county of Los Angeles, and it has been a lack of less than 10% of solvability for those crimes. We noticed that the County of Los Angeles Sheriff's Department is not being that more proactive in giving us the necessary data to find the solvability of what these crimes started with and who these people were when these crimes were committed. And sometimes they are lackadaisical in giving us the information that we need in order to find culpability in these people who project themselves as criminal and criminal activity. Well, we ask that you notice the areas that they cover in the 37th district and notice the boundaries that they have and how they can better serve in other areas than they do in the city of Compton. It's important that we notice out of 3,400 murders since 2007 of January, we have less than 10% solvability of those crimes. Of that 3,400, almost 1,700 represents Latinos, and the rest are disparities from blacks and others. So we want to bring this to your attention, and when you're looking at these boundaries, look at the solvability of crime as well. So I thank you, and I ask you, and all of you are invited on Sunday from 12 to 4 to be at the Wall of Shame. You can see it for yourself. Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe that is the last number.
All right. Connie wants to make a statement. I guess, Jody, you do too. Yep.
Thank you. I would like to address for my fellow commissioners and the record, as well as anyone else that's remaining here. There is a prohibition that's under the law that the commission is prohibited from considering the place of residence of any incumbent or political candidate, in other words, an existing legislator, in the creation of a map, nor can the commission draw districts for the purpose of favoring or discriminating against a present legislator, an incumbent, a political candidate, or a political party. Last night we saw that we've received information that there were congressmen and congresswomen that had been doing rallies in the area for the particular purpose to influence this commission. This morning I was interviewed by a Washington, D.C. reporter, and the reporter had no knowledge. He interviewed me at 7 a.m. and we got out of here at 11:30 last night in Long Beach. He asked me, because he had heard rumors that the congressional people had been organizing these rallies and doing so for the purpose to get community members and activists to come to these hearings and influence this commission by asking that the districts remain together. And he asked me openly, because he wasn't watching our hearing last night, did that occur, or have you seen that happen? I said, wow, where did you get this information? And he said, these are rumors in Washington, D.C. I had absolutely no intention tonight to discriminate against anyone by asking this question. What I really wanted to do, and my intent was, is to determine what influence these present legislatures, whom we are not supposed to consider in map drawing, is trying to influence these hearings. So I certainly had no intention of discriminating against anyone, but we've also asked our voting rights attorney today. We need to make a determination of the evidence that's before us and determine the veracity of the individuals that are coming before us. I needed to understand if these individuals were providing the testimony from their own free will and based on their own understanding of their communities versus being influenced by a particular legislature in office. And that was truly my only intent here, so that we can make a better determination of their testimony when we do wrap-up sessions, so that we can determine where their testimony was coming from. So I absolutely had no other intention otherwise. Thank you.
Thank you. Connie.
Well, Commissioner Filkins-Weber, I appreciate that statement. I have been biting my tongue for some time, not wanting to interrupt the input hearing. And I think it's unfortunate, given that we do still have an input hearing between now and Saturday, when we actually have agendized to discuss our input hearing process, that we still have to get through another day. I understand the intent of where you're coming from. I also find it very troubling that, you know, off the top of my head, as I think back over the last 2 weeks, I think we're on roughly input hearing number 8, and the only time that those questions have been asked have been in downtown LA and to folks making testimony that fit a particular demographic profile. And my suggestion would simply be, given the, I think, very justifiable intent, would be that we consider as a commission whether we want to have some sort of disclosure policy, perhaps, for speakers as they come in, that if they have had any recent contact with, relation with, influence by a legislator of any sort, that they disclose that to the commission, because absent that, it comes across that we as commissioners are identifying who we think doesn't pass the sniff test as they present their testimony to us. And I do have just concerns about our process, and so I think if we're able to revisit and clarify that process as soon as possible, it's really going to help us as commissioners know what to expect of each other in these input hearings, and also help to create an environment in which the public feels free to come and participate. And also that the public, I think, has a right to understand what questions we as a commission are going to ask them, and quite frankly, what questions they have an obligation to answer, and what the implications of those answers might mean. So for what it's worth, I do think this is a fairly urgent matter, and I would request guidance from the chair on, during the interim period where we have an input hearing tomorrow night, how we approach this issue.
I wish I had a good answer for you. The problem I think we're going to run into is that if somebody who comes here with a message from a particular elected representative is not likely to make it public, would be my guess. And how we would ever extract it from them would be problematical, I think. On the other hand, I think it is the discussion that you've had here is really an interesting problem, because you want people to have the opportunity to speak up. On the other hand, we have rules that we're not supposed to be influenced by these kinds of things. So I'm not sure that there's a really clear-cut answer to this question, but I'd be happy to hear from Jean, and then Maria, and then Michelle.
Well, I had the same concern when that question was raised, and I actually have a little note in my notebook that I was going to put in front of Commissioner Filkins-Weber, but felt the same, there's a flow to this process, and I guess I hoped that maybe the question wouldn't be asked repeatedly. I would like us to agree, until we have the time to, if we feel that further discussion is necessary, that we will not ask questions of speakers that are not directly related to the information they're providing. How we could presume to know whether someone has spoken to anyone, and even if they did, how is that relevant to us? People have First Amendment rights to speak to whomever. If they then come and testify before us, well, I just don't know how we step into that kind of judgment about people's motives. The fact that many people spoke on, a particular it is pretty late, isn't it? But the fact that they had the same message, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. The fact that they had the same message could mean a lot of things. They're well organized. They're active in their community. They talk to each other. I agree. We have not asked that same question of any organized group at any time. Where did you get this information? Basically challenging, why are you coming here with that message? So, yeah, I'm equally troubled by it, and given the fact that it is a late hour and we still have hearings to get through in the next few days, I would like us to agree that we will not go down that road or anything like it, and try to stick to asking questions about the facts.
One of the things we should be aware of is that this is not an agendized topic that we've publicized in advance, and I guess that question I have is are we violating the Bagley-Keene Act in this discussion, or any of our requirements? On this question, and then we'll go down the list of if we continue to talk about it.
Because it goes to the operation and the philosophy of the commission, I don't think that we're violating, the Bagley-Keene. I myself echo what Commissioner Columbus-Malloy, and I agree with Commissioner Reyes' point that we should agree not to go down that road. I don't question the intent, but I certainly recognize the effect. And the effect is to chill the input from a community, especially communities that are generally not forthcoming in participation. So if we're expecting for us to send a positive message to the community, certainly that's not the way to do it.
Okay. I think Maria was next, and then Michelle, then Michael, and then Andre, and then Peter.
So I won't echo my concern about how the comments came across. I share those with my fellow commissioners. I take the language that prohibits us from considering whether this is about an existing elected official, and that we're not allowed to take that into consideration. Our duty. It's not the duty of the speakers to stay away from that testimony. We can choose to disregard it, which we should. We're not allowed to. And we may hear and we may say, this is clearly what this is about. This is about an elected official that's concerned that their district is going to disappear or is going to be altered. And I think we have heard lots of that in the last 8 weeks, some through surrogates and, we've heard it in a million different formats, but it's our responsibility to not take that into account and not the speakers. And so, I don't see that we can in any way, where would you draw the line? It's like when we were discussing large groups, small groups, organized groups. They organize themselves into a group. Did somebody, those are all very complicated things when you're trying to encourage maximum participation. That is what we're trying to do, and it's for us to sort out what we heard, and we're not going to take that into account when we draw the lines because we're not allowed to.
Michelle.
Again, not to echo anything, I just think, again, this is about the issue of whether these individuals have come and spoken of their community of interest. And if they do that, as long as they stay away from saying, I would like to support X or Y person, even when they've come and spoken a little bit about, I would like to support my current district, I think there's some elements we've tried to ferret out about, well, what is it in those districts what is your community of interest? And I feel like as long as they're giving that testimony, something doesn't sit well with us because it may have been instigated by an elected official, but in the end, we're looking for community engagement, and if that's how community engagement happened, then I feel like we should be respectful of that as long as they give us the testimony that's necessary. Of course, they could do whatever they want, as Commissioner Blanco said, and it may have to be ignored, but I think for the most part, people have done a very good job all the way around of telling us what their communities of interest are. And in the end, as long as they are individuals that are speaking to their communities of interest and do so, then we should be respectful of that.
Michael?
As you guys know, I tend to get hung up on the philosophy issue of things. I hardly ever seem to get past it, it seems. But when it comes to the philosophy of this, it seems to me that we are here, yes, to engage the community, and yes, we are here to embrace testimony, but we're here as fact finders. We're here to garner testimony. That's our number one job. All that's, to me, is secondary to what the purpose of the commission is in these venues. And if information comes up that there's a organized attempt to kind of subvert or influence the process, and that's brought to the commission or commissioners' attention, I think that there's a responsibility to follow up on that and ask questions. And now, if we want to adopt a policy on how to handle these things in the future, that's different. But I was unaware of this allegation. I was unaware of this until Jody asked, or Commissioner Weber asked, these questions, and started to understand, put the pieces together and figure it out a little. But prior to that, I had noticed some inconsistencies in the testimony that just didn't make sense to me, kind of filled in some of the blanks. And you're right, now we get to make a judgment on that. But when we get into the issue as a philosophy of censoring what kind of questions a commissioner can or can't ask based off of information that they might have received, that there's a problem or a organized problem, a process problem, attempt to influence or subvert the system, I think that's a huge mistake that philosophically we need to take.
Michael, I don't want to cut you off, but I've just been informed we're about to lose the security force in this room, and I think we're going to have to call this off, and we'll just tomorrow should be interesting, but we won't have a chance to talk about this until Saturday. Yeah,
I'll hold my comment then.
Yeah, because we really have to leave the room.
Thanks everybody for coming.
What? Say?